Hi everybody, welcome to Practical Judaism with me, Deb Levy Friedler from the Auckland Hebrew Congregation. It's really great to have you joining us virtually online. I'm sorry we're not together, but in light of the events that are happening around the world and the need to protect ourselves here in New Zealand from the coronavirus, it's really important that we continue learning together online and not face to face. And interestingly enough, we have an amazing precedent for what we're all undertaking now here in New Zealand and in many places around the world, for this idea of quarantining or self-isolating. The first example that we see of this in the Torah is actually from the night before Pesach, when the Jewish people were told to stay in their homes, to paint the blood on their doorposts in order to protect them from the plague of the death of the firstborn that would pass over Egypt. So for us to be staying in our homes to avoid a plague is quite timely. And please God, may we all be kept very, very safe and well as we prepare for Pesach this year. So just to give you a little bit of background, there are huge numbers of laws when it comes to kashrut and to Pesach. And we've talked a little bit before about why Pesach is so important and why we have such strict and careful laws governing it. But the information I'm giving you tonight should be seen as a bit of a summary. And it's by no means an exhaustive list of all the halacha, all of the laws for Pesach. So this is going to focus on chometz. We've spoken a bit about chometz before. It's the 5 types of grain: wheat, barley, rye, oats, or spelt, or the derivatives from them. And we don't have them in our house during Pesach. The one exception is matzah, which is made of flour, but it has only been mixed with the water, the flour, and cooked for under 18 minutes. And this is what makes it matzah. It hasn't been allowed to rise, and it is separate from all other forms of chometz. But otherwise, anything with those ingredients is chometz, and we also stay away from things that have been fermented as well with extracts of chometz. So unfortunately for my lovely husband, that means no whiskey for the whole of Pesach. But never fear, there are plenty of other delicious foods that we will eat over Pesach, and including our matzo ball soup. So you will not starve, but we're going to go through a little bit today of how to deal with that chometz, how to get it out of the house, and what are the laws pertaining to how we do that. So on a very practical level, one of the things you'll want to start doing already is working down your stocks of chometz in the house. So that means, for example, you might start eating the crackers but not replacing them, using up different things in the house that are chometz and not replacing them, so that by the time Pesach comes and you do your full clean out, you don't have as much chometz in the house to need to throw out or to put aside. Now, if it's not a particularly big financial issue for you, and you can get rid of the chometz from your house, you can give it away, you can throw it away, you can get rid of it. If it's particularly valuable chometz, or it's a particularly large quantity of food, or it's a financial issue, we do have a way of dealing with that. You can take the chometz, seal it away in a separate space, in a box or in a cupboard, clearly label it that it's chometz, and then you'll have the opportunity to sell that chometz later to somebody who's not Jewish, and it goes into their possession for the whole of Pesach. It doesn't belong to you, and then it can be bought back afterwards. I did hear someone joking that with all the food shortages that have been going on in different places as people prepare for self-isolation, that it may be hard to buy it back afterwards. They may want to keep it. But in truth, this is a useful mechanism, but it is legally binding. So when we sell our chometz, it's no longer ours, and that's why it's really important not to touch it or do anything with it, because apart from the fact that halachically we can't have chometz in our possession, also halachically and legally it doesn't belong to us, and if it's not ours, we shouldn't be touching it. So that's one of the other ways that we deal with the chometz. We'll go into that in a bit more detail a little bit later on. And you'll remember from last time we spoke about that for Ashkenazi Jews, they also refrain from eating legumes during this time. So beans, corn, rice, peas, those things that we spoke about that are kitniot, those are also not had in the home and not eaten during Pesach. But just remember, they don't have the same status as chometz. Chometz is really the thing we're trying to get out of the house. Doesn't matter if you're Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi, where in the world you came from, where in the world your ancestors came from, you want to get the chometz out of the house. So prior to Pesach, you remove all the chometz, and then once you've removed it all, you can fill out a form that you get from the Auckland Hebrew congregation, that the rabbi has permission to sell the chometz on your behalf. And that process is done with our beloved Claudio. We sell all of our chometz to him. And then after Pesach, we can buy it back again as well. So the process of getting rid of all the chometz from the house involves a lot of searching and a lot of cleaning. Remember, you're not just getting rid of the obvious things like a bag of flour. You also want to check that the kids haven't left any chocolates in their pockets that aren't suitable for Pesach, or that there aren't crumbs of crackers underneath the dishwasher. It's really a chance for a big spring cleaning to get rid of all of the chometz in the house. And it also means that we want dishes that haven't been in contact with chometz as well, or if they have been, that we need to kasher them and prepare them. So in the next video, we're going to talk a little bit about how we prepare all the different dishes and all the different appliances for Pesach as well. But for now, let's assume that you've managed to clean out all the chometz from your house. What is the next thing that you need to do? You've sold your chometz, you've cleaned it out, and we're coming up to Pesach. What do you need to do? So the night before the Seder night, we do the Bidikat chometz, the search for chometz. And this is done after there are 3 stars in the sky. Just like when we want to do Havdalah at the end of Shabbat, we look for those 3 stars in the sky. It's the same time of night that we're free and able to do the search for the Pesach. And it's really important that we diligently search through all the areas in which chometz may have been stored or eaten. It's not just ceremonial, it's also really practical as well, because we're hoping that we'll find anything that we've missed. And the way that it's conducted is one member of the household, in our family it was my mum, would take 10 pieces of chometz, so maybe a piece of bread that had been cut up and wrapped up, and those would be hidden in different places. And then my dad and the kids would go around together with a candle. You do it with candlelight, and you search in all the different places where you think there might be chometz and collect up and make sure you've got all those 10 pieces. And once you've collected them all up, they go together. Oh, by the way, prior to the search, there's a special blessing that you make, and that kind of ushers in the search. And then after you finish the search, you collect all of the other pieces together, and you will need those for the next morning, because the next morning you do the nullification of the chometz, and part of that is burning the chometz that's left over. And so once you've searched and found all those little pieces and any extra pieces, those get bundled together. Don't forget to place them in something that isn't kosher for Pesach. You don't want to put them in your kosher for Pesach pot, because then you've put chometz in your pot and that could be a problem. So whatever vessel you choose to store it in and whatever you choose to burn it in the next day should be something that you're not going to be using for Pesach. It doesn't have to be something necessarily for food storage. It can be any safe vessel for burning something in. And the next morning, after the search, you will have recited a special declaration that the chometz is nullified, bitul chometz, and that is a declaration that all of the chometz in your possession, the things that you haven't discovered, the things that you have discovered, the things that have been removed, the things that you're not even aware of, all of it is nullified, and it's ownerless, and it is to be like the dust of the earth. And in that way, even if you've missed something, technically through this process, it's not even chometz anymore, it's not food, it's irrelevant. And then the next morning you'll actually go about destroying the chometz that you found. Just a reminder that for some people who are the firstborn in their family, as a symbol and declaration of gratitude for Hashem having spared the firstborn of the children of Israel while the firstborn of Egypt were killed. The firstborn of the families today will still undertake a fast the next day, called the Fast of the Firstborn. There are some exceptions to this. Obviously, if it's not safe for you to fast, even if you're the firstborn, you don't do the fast. But also, if you've finished a section of learning, like let's say you've been studying a tractate of Talmud and you finish that tractate of Talmud, then it's possible to have a siyum with a feast, celebration to conclude that learning with a feast, and that overrides the fast of the firstborn. So in many communities, it's been a tradition that some people in the community will finish some learning and they will celebrate with a feast, and that feast will take away the requirement for the firstborn in that group to fast, or the firstborn who come and celebrate with them to fast. And I'll have a chat with my lovely husband. I know he's been doing some study which will finish before Pesach, in order to make sure that our eldest doesn't have to fast, and that we can celebrate instead. And I'll find out, even if you can't attend the feast this year physically because of the limitations that we have with coronavirus, I'll find out from him if it's possible to still be included in that siyum via Zoom or something like that, so that for those who would prefer to celebrate instead of fast, they have the opportunity to do so. So those people are fasting, but for the rest of us who aren't fasting, we can still have chometz for breakfast before the dedicated time when you need to burn your chometz. Now, the time when you need to stop eating the chometz is the halachic 5th hour of the day. Depending on where you are in the world, that'll be a different time in different places, so it's an important thing to look up and check. And you can do that through the Auckland Hebrew Congregation to check what time we finish eating chometz. And then we need to burn the chometz with a special blessing that we collected the night before. Again, it's a really fun thing to do with the family. On a practical level, just a few considerations. Our family, we've always wrapped the chometz up in paper towels with some cardboard, and often if you pour a little bit of strong alcohol on it, it helps it to burn more effectively. Though it doesn't need to be completely burnt and destroyed in order to fulfill this mitzvah. But it's important to symbolically be burning and destroying it, and also to make sure that you have something there in terms of health and safety. So a fire extinguisher, some water, some sand, something to put out the fire if you need to as well. And then we enter into an interesting period where we're kind of in no man's land, because we've destroyed the chometz. It's gone. We can't eat any chometz, right? But Pesach hasn't technically started, so we haven't had the Seder yet. We can't really eat matzah. So in that time in between, it's great to have some food prepared that is neutral. It's not chometz, it's not matzah. So you might have some potatoes or fruit and vegetables, eggs, fish, some meat. You don't want to have too much food because you don't want to take away from the Seder feast that's coming up that night, but to have something that isn't chometz and isn't matzah to eat during the day. And just a quick note, what happens if you discover that you do have chometz during Pesach? If you discover chometz during Pesach and it's Chol HaMoed, it's those days in between where it's not Yontif or Shabbat, then you should just destroy it and get rid of it immediately. If you find it during Shabbat or Yontif, then you can cover it with a vessel and you can destroy it after Havdalah. But either way, it shouldn't be in your house. Remember, you have declared that all chometz is null and void, but if you found something that was significant chometz, then it's good to get rid of it. And then, on the final day of Pesach, after you've made Havdalah, just wait another half hour or so, because we need to give the rabbi a chance to go to Claudio and to make sure that he buys back all the chometz so that it belongs to us again. So don't go straight after Havdalah and dig into your chometz. Be patient, wait a half an hour or so just to give us a chance to go through that transaction and make sure that the chometz is back into your possession after Pesach as well. So that's just a little summary for you about some of the halachic laws around chometz and how we get it out of the house. And for the next video, come have a look at Pesach cleaning and how we make sure that we get our appliances, our vessels, our kitchen, and our home ready to be chometz free for the whole of Pesach.